Welcome to Let's Talk Near Death, the podcast show where we talk about life, death, and experiences somewhere in between. I'm Kirsty Salisbury, the host of the show, and you can join me as I talk to everyday people with not so everyday experiences. Let's talk near death. So joining me today, we have got Aimee Champion, who is based in Washington in the US. And Aimee is such a great name you've got, Aimee Champion, because you've really become a champion in life, haven't you?
Yeah, I'm still convincing myself of it, but yes.
I love your name. I think it's great. So Aimee, you had a near-death experience.
I did.
Do you want to just tell us a little bit about that? Tell us what age you were, and are you happy to share just some of the details about how that took place?
Sure. So there's a little bit of a backstory, and that backstory is that I tested positive for the breast and ovarian cancer gene, BRCA2.
Wow. How old were you?
I was mid-30s, I guess.
Okay.
Time doesn't seem to exist anymore, so I have to look at calendars for questions like that.
Yep.
But I had tested positive for the gene. My mom was, one of several women on her side of the family who had developed breast or ovarian cancer.
Okay.
So when I tested positive, I immediately opted for a hysterectomy because, ovarian cancer is so hard to detect. And then by the time you've detected it's, like a 5-year lifespan, according to statistics. So immediately I was like, okay, take it all. I don't want this high of a risk of this deadly of a cancer.
Yeah.
And then for about a year, I played around in my mind with the idea of breast cancer. It didn't seem as urgent to me when I tested positive because breast cancer is curable. Lots and lots of women go through it and it's, they're still living productive lives. So I was willing to take that risk. But after about a year of going in and out of the mammograms and all of that, I just found that I was living on a daily basis with this extreme anxiety. Mm-hmm. That one day would be the day that I would wake up and find the lump and, then I'd have a bout of cancer. So I decided to have a total double mastectomy and reconstructive surgery.
Oh, wow. How long did it take you to come to that decision to have the mastectomy?
About a year.
Yeah.
And so when they did the reconstruction on my breasts, they used my tug flaps, which are muscles on the inner thighs, to recreate breasts so that it would be more natural and, it was all the rage, right? There were 2 places in the United States performing this surgery. One happened to be in Seattle, which is where I was receiving my care, and the other in Boston.
Yeah.
And it involved really ridiculous micro-neural surgery to reconnect the nerve endings from the muscles in my legs to my chest area. Really involved long procedure, like an 18-hour surgery or something like that.
Hang on, an 18-hour surgery?
Yeah.
That's ridiculously long. Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
So you had the surgery?
I did. And at some point during that surgery, I lost too much blood and died, essentially. Although I will say my medical records are suspiciously, there's like a 36-hour period where there are no records, no notes.
Yeah, do you know, this is actually quite common. Even with my one, there's no indication that I flatlined or died or anything like that. Medical,
Right.
like we know what we went through, right? And that
Right.
goes beyond any documentation. So, okay, did you know at the time that you were dying?
Yes, because I felt myself leave my body. Like now, in hindsight, and it's a little hard for me to talk about what was going on then versus what I understand now.
Yeah.
But at the time, what I describe now is I felt myself leaving my body, but not going far. I was still connected to it. And I felt what everybody says is the tunnel and the light at the end of the tunnel, but it wasn't a visual perception. It was a feeling.
Okay.
And that I was sort of connected by an invisible cord to my physical body. The light is completely indescribable. Brightest, purest, whitest, warmest, hugging light you could possibly imagine.
Wow. Yeah.
And then there were spirits, I guess, entities. I don't really have the words for it that encapsulate all of the various theories around this stuff. So whatever you call it, I encountered beings.
Yeah. Did they have any details? Like, were you able to see any physical features or?
No, I have no visual perception. No visual perception of any of this.
Yeah.
It was like a telepathic awareness.
Okay. So you didn't even necessarily see them with your eyes. It was just that they were there.
Yes, I felt them. I was communicating with them telepathically, I guess, psychically.
Yeah.
Empathically, whatever the word is that makes people feel comfortable.
Yep.
And so there were at least 3 entities there that were previously unknown to me, and there were many other entities that were friends or family or people that I'd known in my life who had died. And so I felt like I was returning home. I felt like I was comfortable. I felt like I was safe. It was a relief. I was glad to be there, but I was surprised to be there.
Surprised to be coming home or surprised to be in this light with these beings?
In the light with the beings.
Okay.
When I went into all of this, I was a pretty devout, if you can say that, atheist. I was raised from childhood as an atheist, so much so that if I went to church, my parents would kick me out of the house kind of thing.
Wow. Yep.
So I had no reference point, no religious or spiritual reference point prior to this.
Mm-hmm.
Because in my mind, you die and that's it. There is nothing beyond this life. So I distinctly remember being told in really certain, like if I were having a face-to-face conversation with the being, the entity, it would have been like one of these, grab me by my shoulders, look me dead in the eye, and say, you're okay. You've always been okay. Again, I didn't have a visual representation of this. It was just a other connection, awareness. But that's what was told to me. You're okay. You've always been okay. So prior to this surgery, I hadn't always been okay in my mind. I have had a lot of personal traumas. It's like trauma after trauma after trauma throughout my whole life, either to me or to loved ones.
Mm-hmm.
So that was immediately comforting. Then I had a life review. And in that life review, I came to this awareness that there's not really good and bad. And so the things that I hated myself for or couldn't forgive myself for became meaningless. Like the value that I had assigned to them just dissipated.
Did you have any emotions at this point? Like, were you going through this life review and feeling the similar emotions to what we feel on Earth, or were you completely disconnected from the negativity?
Completely disconnected. It felt like the most objective experience I've ever had.
But yeah, it was a comfortable one, not a criticism one.
Yeah, right. Because I was looking at my trespasses, or, whatever I had done, and I was seeing a bigger picture that not only involved me and the people involved in whatever it was, but this whole web of, I was the vehicle for whatever the energy exchange needed to be for everybody involved.
Mm-hmm.
I was a part of something bigger. And so what I understood that to mean was that self-judgment is ridiculous to the degree that we become pathological about it. Obviously, we're living in these human bodies and we're here and we're doing our thing. And we should probably be focused on really positive things that we value as positive.
Mm-hmm.
But beyond this life, there really isn't a good and bad. There really isn't a heaven or a hell, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
It's all just experience and it's all necessary and valuable. Because I realized that a lot of the mistakes that I had made, or maybe not even mistakes, conscious choices that I'd made that had hurt other people, were there for lessons for me to understand why we wouldn't want to do that. So I went through this life review. That was really fast, from what I can, or maybe it was just like such a small part of the significance of the overall experience. But it happened. It was over. I had this new level of awareness. And so I asked, okay, have I learned enough? And the response was like an undeniable laughing, chuckling, coming from like a sage kind of a person. Well, it's not about learning. It's that you haven't taught enough. And then that's when I realized I wasn't dying for good, but I was coming back.
Right. Okay. How did that make you feel, or did you not really have feelings?
I didn't in those moments. I didn't, and so I was just like, okay, and then I came back. I didn't debate it. I didn't have a response to it. It was so objective. It was just so. I was seeing my own existence. Like it was a special prize. If you win this on the game, you get this extra little hidden doorway, and you're getting more information than people can get. I was just given this gift, and I knew it was a gift. I didn't understand it, but I was okay with it because it was all so right feeling. It was so true feeling, so plainly pure that I didn't have any feelings about it or judgments. And then I came back. I knew immediately when I came to through, fog of morphine and all of that, because it was an extensive surgery.
Yeah.
I had the wherewithal at the time to ask for a hospital chaplain. And so the chaplain came in and I was groggy and on opioids and goofy, like anybody would be.
Yeah.
The chaplain came in and flipped through my chart, asked how I was feeling. And all I could get out was something happened. I need to talk to you about it. Something happened to me. And he flipped the chart and he said, well, it says here you're an atheist.
Yeah.
I don't know how I can help you. And I said, I don't either, but something happened to me and it's not an atheist thing that happened.
Yeah.
And he was like, well, if you can't tell me what happened, I can't help you. And he left.
Oh, are you kidding?
I'm not.
That's terrible.
I know. And so that sort of like made me feel so isolated and crazy that, and the more I was coming to, the more I was realizing that something really wasn't right with my physical body. Now, so I had the brain injury, right, at that point too, simultaneously.
How did the brain injury come in when you were having a mastectomy and a different kind of surgery?
Well, I lost too much blood, and so I didn't get oxygen to my brain.
Okay.
I have like 15 lesions in my brain as a result of the loss of oxygen.
Oh, wow.
So I went through I was in the ICU for a couple days, and then they put me on the ward, and, eventually I went through some PT and they released me to home, and I was like hitting the minimum thresholds on all of the instant recovery standards.
Mm-hmm.
And so nobody was like, whoa, something's not right here. But I could tell something wasn't right.
Mm-hmm.
And I kept saying, it's not right. And they kept saying, well, do more PT, do more this, like I wasn't communicating what I needed to communicate, and they weren't hearing or thinking broadly enough. So then there's like 5 years of misdiagnosis.
Oh, wow, 5 years. And so what was happening during that time? Were you quite unwell, or on the outside did it appear like you'd healed and you were okay?
I appeared like I was okay. My behavior and brain function was a slow crawl to a failure. So in those early days, behaviors and attitudes and energy and things that just weren't right about me, my memory lapses, that kind of stuff, we were attributing it to possibly menopause because I'd had the hysterectomy and I wasn't taking hormone replacement. So they kept saying, well, you're menopausal. It's probably going to be 5 years. So during that 5 years, I was like, okay, I'm going to attribute it to menopause and just keep pushing through.
Mm-hmm.
And I've been a person in my career and personal development that's been a high achiever.
Okay.
I would consider myself pre all of this a type triple A. Like I'm not just a type A, I'm a type triple A.
Yeah. So That was before your brain injury.
Right. And so I just kept living like I was who I was, and pushing and pushing and pushing and pushing. So over the course of 5 years, all of these things are going wrong. Things are getting worse, but I'm just going, it's going to end. It's menopause. I'm going to get over it. I'm just going to keep pushing and make sure I'm on top of everything.
Yeah.
But with a brain injury, which I'm sure you probably know, when you do that and you don't allow your brain the proper rest and rejuvenation, and you don't have good nutrition, and, you live maybe a stressful life. I'm an attorney.
Yeah, that's pretty stressful.
It's pretty stressful. It's like the wearing down of brakes, and eventually you just slam into the wall.
Yeah, I've done that quite a few times now. Yeah.
Right. And so that happened, and it wasn't until that happened. And at that point, I had developed small fiber peripheral neuropathy in both of my legs and arms. And so I was getting weird diagnoses like, well, maybe you're diabetic. This is like peripheral neuropathy like diabetics get. Well, I'm not.
Can you just expand what that actually is for our listeners?
Sure. Small fiber peripheral neuropathy is, it looks like, I have slides of it. They took skin biopsies. It's like a fraying of the nerve endings way out at the edges of the skin.
Oh, okay.
And it's incredibly painful. The umbrella diagnosis of fibromyalgia, this is one of the worst one under that umbrella. And it's the only kind of neuropathy that we can document scientifically with slides and samples.
Okay.
So it's an extreme pain kind of situation.
Oh, man.
I was swelling in a lot of pain.
That must have been so hard.
Yeah. I was like, I don't, maybe this is, so for those interim years, they were putting me on different psych meds and telling me that I was bipolar and depressed and had borderline and all of these psych things.
How did that sit with you? Did you know that you're okay, or?
Well, I felt like I was okay, but I had no, I didn't know to think about a brain injury. And so I kept feeling like, well, this doesn't feel right, but if that's their conclusion, then I'm just going to take the meds they tell me to take.
Yeah.
I just want to be better,
Yeah.
So finally, a doctor diagnosed me with diabetes just based on my symptoms and put me on metformin, that drug for diabetes, people with diabetes.
Yeah.
Which tanked me out, made me even sicker, of course. It makes sense. Don't give drugs to people that don't have that disease.
Yeah.
So I got pissed off. Sorry.
Yeah, no, you absolutely would.
Yeah, that was the primary care provider. And so I made my own referral to an endocrinologist who ran literally every test and said, you are not diabetic. I want you to go see a cardiologist, and I want you to go see a psychiatrist, and I want you to go see a neurologist. It's either your heart or in your head, and I don't know if it's psychiatric or physiological. This is not an endocrinology problem. You are squeaky clean from my perspective, which shocked me, right?
Yeah.
So I finally found, I did not go see a cardiologist. I started with neurology and psych because I knew there was something wrong with my heart. I knew that because by now I was going, okay, well, I'm not an atheist. Clearly something happened. I had been dabbling. That's not accurate. Not dabbling. I had been synchronistically being pulled to Tibetan Buddhism specifically.
Wow.
But I hadn't put them together. Right?
Okay.
None of the pieces were put together yet. Yeah, so the endocrinologist, so I started with neurology because I knew that it had to do something with my perception or my brain or I was crazy. Like I could be an atheist and a crazy one, or I could open myself up spiritually and learn a little more and experiment with ideas about spirituality and religion and possibly just have a brain injury. So anyway, the psychiatrist said, you don't seem psychiatrically, you don't seem to have these symptoms. These symptoms seem to be a physiological, biological problem with the structure of your brain. So let's keep doing consults. And I did weekly consults with the psychiatrist while the neurologists do their thing. And I said, okay. So the neurologist that diagnosed me, this is like way out of her area of interest. She's interested in curing migraines and MS. But she diagnosed me. She did an MRI, EEGs, all kinds of things. And they found 12 lesions. And she said, you have 12 lesions or 15 lesions, 12 or 15. I confuse it all the time. But I don't really know what to do with you. This is not my area of expertise. Here are some drugs for the peripheral neuropathy. Good luck. So that was in Texas, in the state of Texas. I'm not from there. Washington is home, and I had gone to Massachusetts for a while and then Texas for a while. And then I decided I'm going to go back to the Pacific Northwest because there's a lot of alternative therapy just in general here. We have naturopaths and homeopaths and acupuncture, Chinese medicine. There's just a whole lot more, universal truth grounded kinds of treatment. So I came back to the Northwest, went through 2 neurologists and a psychiatrist, not because of anything to do with me, but because they keep leaving the system. Our healthcare system is crazy bad.
Yeah.
They kept leaving the system that I had insurance with. So I didn't really get any good care, even when I moved back to Washington. But I found a naturopath and I went into her office crying and said, we've got to figure something out. I'm at the end of my rope. I was denied disability because I could function, put my shoes on and brush my teeth and drive the car, not very well because my brain was overwhelmed. But, they don't really see brain injury for what it is. So I was failing at work. Everything was really getting bad. And my naturopath said, I heard about this guy who is a neurologist. He's a naturopath by training, and then he became a neurologist. And he's doing interesting work with brain maximizing the brain. And I bet he'd have some ideas about rehabbing the brain. And he happens to be in a town not far from here, Issaquah. So would you be willing to go see him? And I said, yeah. Well, he doesn't take insurance. There's all these barriers why seeing him was going to be a problem, but I was at the end of my rope. So I scraped and saved enough money to go see him. And within an hour, he's a functional neurologist. Within an hour, he was like, I think I can make a huge difference in your life.
Oh, wow.
He said, I want you to come for, a full week of all day rehab. It's going to be multidisciplinary rehab. And this is what it's going to cost. Let me know when you can get the money together and we'll schedule it. So even halfway through his assessment, using his various functional neurology tools, I could tell that he was changing my brain. And so anyway, long story short, I went and saw him, went through the rehab, got significantly better.
Oh, good.
And at that point, I was so much better that I really I could sit with my studies of spirituality and I could discuss them with people like on Facebook. And I could read again and I could watch TV programs without falling asleep.
Oh, wow.
And so I followed those little points of synchronicity around Tibetan Buddhism and started meditating. And it got to a point where I was meditating maybe 6 to 7 hours in a 24-hour period.
Wow, 6 to 7 hours?
Yeah.
Gosh, and that must have been really healing for your brain because your brain it's having a rest. Well, I shouldn't say having a rest, but it's not engaged in everyday activities, which really put a lot of time and pressure, especially on an injured brain.
Right. Now, during all of that, my peripheral neuropathy was not under control, so I was in excruciating pain. They put me on, they have like this list of drugs that they try for this kind of pain, and none of them really work very well for everybody, and you just got to play around with it. So I was still playing around with it, and I was in excruciating pain. And the first thing I noticed is that the medication was addressing the pain.
Yeah.
And the second thing that I noticed was that I was connecting back to that place that I had been in my NDE. And it was so incredible. I became obsessed with it. And, so I meditate maybe 2 hours in a 24-hour period now. Because I'm being really disciplined with myself. If I could meditate all day, every day, I'd be happy to, because it's an incredible connection.
And you feel it takes you back to that exact same space, those feelings that you had during your near-death experience.
Yes.
Wow.
Connection to the larger whole and to teachers, ascended masters. And it gets pretty metaphysical and spiritually wonky for me because, like I said, I was an atheist. So then I started noticing that not only was I healing myself, and I have, notes and notes and notes to myself. Oh, I had this old injury in my ankle, and I focused my meditation energy on healing that, and now it's completely gone, that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I was keeping notes because I couldn't believe it, and also because I can't remember to the brain injury.
Yeah.
And then I started noticing that I could calm my daughter, and that I could help her physiologically feel better after an injury. So I was like healing her empathically.
Wow.
So then I studied Reiki and became a Reiki master.
Yeah.
And so now as a Reiki master, I have multiple clients that I'm working with on meditation and Reiki. And to the degree that they're interested in Buddhism, I share that with them.
Mm-hmm.
The interesting thing is that I feel like I was infused with Buddhism, like it was an infusion or an software upgrade or something during that NDE. And it was my ego state, my human physical body state, that has always created the barriers to that connection of Buddhism and spirituality and universal truths and all of that.
Mm-hmm.
And so now I'm absolutely certain that there's life beyond death. I know what I've experienced. I know from talking to other people that my experience is smack in the middle of the norms, if we have norms in this kind of stuff. Like things that I experienced are validated by other people's experiences. So yeah, I don't know. That's kind of like the backstory and the nitty gritty of it.
Well, do you know why, or do you have any suspicions as to why your near-death experience happened? Like why at that time? Did you have any kind of specific message to come back with, or a task, or do you understand what you were meant to do with it?
To teach, absolutely to teach. And it was funny to me early in the days where I was going, okay, I'm living in pain. This is horrible. And I was suicidal, by the way, for a period of time, because I was like, no, rationally, seriously, this life is not worth living. My wife is mad at me all the time. She's probably going to leave, which incidentally, she has left our relationship now. But I was feeling all of this coming. I have this child. I'm in pain. I can't get doctors to believe me. They think I'm crazy. This life is not worth living. And I know what happens when this life ends. And I want that again. Like I was excited about it.
Yeah.
I laugh now because I don't have any pain. I feel like I've healed myself, truly. I still struggle with brain injury stuff, and I have a cognitive prosthesis, and, I have to work at home. I can't really work in an office setting, and, there are accommodations, but spiritually, hopefully myself, I know I'm supposed to be here, and I know I'm supposed to be here to teach. And so it's funny because in those early days, I was like, okay, if I'm supposed to be here and I'm supposed to teach, what is it I'm supposed to be teaching? And I was actually teaching as a college professor for an online school in public policy, so law and governance, those kinds of things. And I loved it, and I was good at it, and I still have communication with my past students. It was all happy, cheery, rosy stuff, but it wasn't the teaching that I understood that I needed to be doing. I knew that. So for a few more years, I just continued to do what I do. I was an attorney for a national nonprofit. I was writing legislation, that kind of not really litigation-based law practice. I was dabbling in Reiki with other people. I started to realize, well, there's something to this Reiki thing. And, a mainstay of Reiki is that you share it, you teach it. And so I thought, well, I'm supposed to teach Reiki. And so I started building my practice and looking for students and, trying to figure out how that was going to work into this other life that I had. the more I started doing that, the more I was like, no, Reiki's just a tool. I'm not supposed to be teaching Reiki. And so over time, and I didn't pin these things on a calendar, but over time I came to the conclusion that I was supposed to be exactly who I'd always knew I was. I was supposed to be an attorney. I was supposed to be a helper. I was supposed to be teaching people. And I now have a law practice. It's truly a law practice. I go to court. I represent clients. But really what it is that I call myself a problem solver. And so I'm not going to court representing clients as a bulldog and they're sitting in the corner being quiet and I'm running the show. I'm literally teaching people how to navigate their lives against whatever system they're confronting. So I'm not a typical attorney, right? Like I'm doing Reiki with my law clients. And I'm saying, here's what you got to do.
Wow, that's pretty different.
Because they're not going to feel self-confident or like they've learned or advanced in their sense of self if I just go in and do everything for them. But they will achieve those things if we do it together. And I model the behavior and the actions and the attitude and the beliefs that help people. So, yeah. So I walk people through whatever they're trying to navigate. And that could be court. It could be a nonprofit organization looking to be accredited by whatever entity. It could be a small business owner just wanting to banter around ideas and how does the law impact this kind of an idea. So it's really, I'm supposed to teach, and I'm supposed to teach because I had the NDE, because I got the software upload for Buddhism, because I have the brain injury, because I have the breast and ovarian cancer. Like all of those traumas made me who I am today. And instead of looking at them as horrible things that happened in my life, boo-hoo me, I'm supposed to teach how to overcome those traumas and realize those of us who are traumatized truly for a reason. And it's
like a greater purpose reason.
Yeah. It's about overcoming those things that our egos create and recognizing our personal autonomy and our soul selves, that we aren't our bodies. That's just wrapping paper in this existence. This is like a blip on the map, on the timeline of our eternal existence.
Wow, I love it. Do you think you would have ever got to something similar if you hadn't have had the NDE, you hadn't had that spiritual experience? Do you think you would have remained atheist?
Yes, absolutely, because it was rational and made sense.
Yeah. Wow, it's so interesting, isn't it? So I just want to tap back a little bit into when you said you were having a life review.
Yes.
How much of your life did you review? Was it all of it, or did that get cut short when you realised your purpose and what you needed to do, and then you came back?
It was the entire life, and it was given to me in blips of trauma, some trauma that was perpetrated toward me that I received, or maybe, it's not perpetrated, it's, sick family members, whatever, but things that I was feeling were traumatizing, but also things that I was doing to others that was traumatizing to them. With no fault, no judgment about good or bad, just this is the experience and this is the role that you played. And so there's a whole lot of stuff that wasn't trauma related that I didn't experience, but it was like the roadmap was the trauma. And I went through the order of events of my life to the point of losing the blood and dying.
Wow. Did you have any kind of idea of what your future would hold when you came back? Was that included in your life review, or was it only to the point that you'd reached in your life at that time?
That's that point in time. Nothing for the future. What I feel like I maybe like they gave me the Cliff Notes, and I want to go back to the whole book. Because there was a lot I had to figure out. What does all of this mean?
Totally.
And so, it would have been nice to have the whole book. Cliff Notes enough. It happened on January 9th of 2009.
Okay.
So, since then, I've just been trying to piece it all together with a literally broken brain.
Yeah.
And trying to figure that out.
Yeah, quite literally.
Yeah.
Did you come back with any kind of specific knowledge or awareness?
Yes, the whole Buddhism thing. I am not an active, like I don't go to temples. I don't talk to other Buddhists directly. There are very few Tibetan Buddhism people, practitioners in my area. There are some, but most of the Buddhists in this area are very westernized, very, not to be disparaging, but very Zen. And it's not the same thing, I mean, like there are different lines of Protestantism there are with Buddhism. And so it has been a soul study. And I say that because I get my lessons and my knowledge and my awareness all through meditation. I've certainly read Buddhist texts, and when I get a question from a meditation that I don't quite get it, I'll go look it up. But I'm not walking around studying Buddhism academically, right?
Yeah.
It's just understanding it by living it.
Yeah, that's beautiful, actually. What would you say to somebody who's going through some major life disruption or some trauma or a really hard time? Would you suggest to them just to be in it because it's part of a bigger picture? Or do you think there's a more personal element to it?
I would tell them the bigger picture, and I would say just breathe, my most common thing to say to people is in through the nose and out through the mouth.
Yeah.
Well-being,
Yeah.
But to the degree that people want to talk to me and work with me around their traumas, and I'm not a mental health person, like I'm not, but I know so much about our society that, people can tell me things and I can say, yeah, you need this, but don't go this way, go this way.
Yeah.
And then the energetic healing, the Reiki's a tool. I think it's more accurate to say I'm an empathic healer.
Mm-hmm.
That I definitely got from the NDE. And to the degree that people want to open up and be really specific with me and work on those things very deeply and personally, I'm totally open for that, because I think that you have to be able to get to that spot, and you can do it with an NDE. You can do it with various, psycho affected, chemicals, mushrooms, LSD, all of that stuff. You can do it chemically. You can do it through meditation. There are multiple ways that you can get to that space of home, of wholeness, of connection to universal truth, which, love and light.
I find it interesting that you talk about home. So you feel very much that's
home. Yeah.
Is our place of origin.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. And because I feel like my human existence, this is the outing. This is the racetrack, the practice.
It's a long outing.
Yeah. Well, yeah. This is where I test the ideas that I get soulfully. This is where I demonstrate the ideas that I get soulfully. That consciousness doesn't allow for introducing the variability of the human ego and the human, advancement. And so, the human body, I think about it, I'm trying to figure out how to write a book, which I haven't quite gotten the organizational skill down yet, but it's really about how do we drive our humans? Our humans are the cars. And you got to understand the computer chips in the cars and the pedals and the gear shifting and the windshield wipers and the light. You have to understand all of that. So people experiencing trauma are getting fast pass to the classroom that shows us the diagram of the human body and the mind, the brain.
Do you think we're here to learn some particular thing, or are we here to complete something for the overall better? Is a universal body?
I think it's both.
Both.
I think we are all absolutely connected, and all, by saying all, I mean humans and animals, every living being.
Yeah.
And so we're here because we're a part of the all, and the all is creating this life.
Do you think that we come back again? Or do you think it's a one-off thing?
Yeah, no, I totally believe in reincarnation. And I do believe that I have had roles in human incarnation prior to this particular life. I feel super lucky to have had the NDE because I know everybody dies, and I believe everybody's bodies die multiple times. It's the same soul, but you get a different body.
Yeah.
So I feel lucky because I got to die and come back to the same life. And so it's like immediate comparison and picking up where I left off and doing it better.
Yeah. And you get to remember it, right?
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. How much do you long to go back to that place? Like, it sounds a bit weird to say, do you look forward to dying, but do you look forward to being back in that space?
Sure. But it's different now because when I meditate, I can be there. Like, I feel, I know that I can empathically connect to other beings in the world, and they could be in New Zealand. And I could, get a telepathic sense of energetic reality and energetic imprint of that being. I almost feel like I hope I don't die again too soon, because this is a really cool way to be.
Yeah.
I mean, it has its drawbacks, but this is really cool. And I know that dying and being there, eventually I'm going to come back. But it's going to be starting over again with a fresh body and fresh circumstances of those around me and the environment around me. And so it won't be the same.
Yeah.
It's a whole game then.
Yeah, that'll be totally different.
And I can't just come back and go, okay, well, let me pick up where I left off, because I'll be a child. I'll have to go to law school again. And, I don't want to do that.
Yeah, totally. Do you ever sense that you've got the people that you connect with, the beings that you talked about, do you ever sense that they're around you on a physical plane, like on Earth?
Yes. Right. I can call to them, and I feel their presence, and I feel their presence differently. Like their energetic imprints. We're all energy. And it doesn't ever cease to exist. It just changes form. And so I know that energy. It's not looking, it's not listening, it's not touching. It's a empathic imprint.
Aimee, thank you so much for sharing your experience with us.
It's such a pleasure.
It's so great to hear individual stories of these experiences, because I personally believe that all of our experiences are completely different based on our purpose, where we're at in life, our experiences, things we've done and things we need to do. So it's really great to hear your near-death experience. I'm fascinated by it. Comes back again to a spiritual perspective and a spiritual thing that you received and how you're able to tap into that. So thank you for sharing, for being vulnerable and letting us know what you went through.
Yes, thank you. I appreciate it.
Thanks for joining me for this episode of the Let's Talk Near Death podcast show. If you've enjoyed it, please share it with your friends, tell people about it. I'd love to get these messages out there. You can also connect with me on Facebook at Kirsty Salisbury Official, and you can subscribe to receive updates for new episodes as they come about. I'm Kirsty Salisbury, and this is Let's Talk Near Death.